music, culture, politics, society podcast, interviews, movie reviews, and more. Live Sundays at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern on the Spot Podcast and the Film Review Life channel. Subscribe.
Hi, this is Bernadette Stannis, Thelma from Good Times, and you're watching the Film Review.
What's going on, people? What's going on, people? This is another great episode of hashtag TFR Podcast Live. That's right. It's the first episode in February. And you know, it's Black History Month. And over here, that supersedes every little thing, people. So
we
welcome.
have the perfect film for Black History Month.
That's right. We have a perfectly great film. We are reviewing Judas and the Black Messiah, right? We're going to be reviewing that tonight. You know, it comes out February 12th, but you know, we are the film review, and so we get films just a little bit early to review for you, so you will know what to look out for and what to spend your money on, because here we give reviews that save you pocket revenue. We are the husband and wife team. I'm Crazy D.
Tracy.
And we review movies, music, culture, politics, and society on this podcast we call hashtag TFR Podcast Live. And like I said, we have a jam-packed show. It's hashtag TFR Podcast Live's first Black History Month episode of 2021. And we have a jam-packed show. The husband and wife team take a look at the top 20 film documentaries. We cut it down to 10. We split it in half, right? Which are great to watch concerning the influence American Black music and culture has had on America. We had to break that up into 2 weeks. So this is the first week of that. We take a look at 2 films. Boys State and Borat, the subsequent movie. Doesn't have anything to do with Black History Month, but you know, we review all films, and this is something that you need to know, some information you need to know. And then we get to celebrating Black History Month further with the review of the Cuban, Louis Gossett Jr.'s latest performance, Malcolm and Marie, and an early bird special review of Judas and the Black Messiah, debuting on HBOMax on February 12th, 2021. Tune in. It's a jam-packed show with reviews, which will save you pocket revenue. And we are more than glad to have you tuned in today. We appreciate you tuning in to be with us today, right? So look. Let's get started without any further ado, because we have a jam-packed show. So, you know, we're not doing any memes today. We're going to go on ahead and start right in. Right. So we have one that we saw, right? We have one that we saw, and we decided that we would review it, right? And it's called Cutthroat City, right? Cutthroat City. Okay. This is directed by the RZA, right? It took a while for it to come out because, you know, COVID was happening. And so COVID was happening. So it took a while for the film to come out. But finally, it's out for people to watch, right? Now, the first thing that I'll say about Cutthroat City is it has a pretty good cast. Let's go through the cast real quick.
Starring Shamik Moore as Blink.
That's right.
Cat Graham, Demira, Demetrius Shipp Jr. plays Miracle.
Now, you know Demetrius Shipp Jr. from playing Tupac Shakur. Right? In the Tupac movie. Now, I am glad because, you know, there is a lot of gunplay in this film and there's a lot of hoodie wearing in this film. And I'm glad that they did not have him playing Tupac, like a caricature of Tupac. He really has upped his acting game. So that's one thing we'll say about him. Continue on.
Wesley Snipes, Denzel Whitaker, Isa Gonzalez,
Mm-hmm.
Keenan Johnson, T.I., Terrence Howard, Ethan Hawke, Isaiah Washington, Tyrone Woodley, Rob Morgan, Dominique Duvernay,
Mm-hmm.
Joel David Moore.
Yeah, so it's an ensemble cast.
Yeah,
We don't have to go through all the
huge
rest. So let
ensemble,
me say
yeah.
though that Isaiah Washington shows his ability to emote and act in this film. He plays the mortician in the film, right? He plays a mortician in the film, and he surely does show his ability to emote in this film and his ability to take on a character and transform into another person. He does have that ability. He has those acting chops. So I have to give Isaiah Thomas his props. Now, this is supposed to take place in New Orleans.
Right.
It happens it opens up just before Hurricane Katrina.
Right.
And it's in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. This story takes place in the 9th Ward, right? Not a lot of Louisiana accent, I will say, in the film. Not a lot of Louisiana accent in the film. So it's like you're watching a film about everyday people. It's like how Denzel will be someplace and Denzel will just be Denzel. His accent won't change. It's just Denzel.
Right.
Same thing.
Well, Kat Graham, she, had the Louisiana accent.
It had the Louisiana accent just a little bit, but everybody else, it was just pretty much.
Yeah. And Shamik Moore was in and out a little.
In and out.
But the thing is, it's like the acting is so good.
Yeah. The acting in it is good. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give that big ups. Terrence Howard as the Saint, right? He plays that role, right? So, like I said, it opens up in post Katrina, opens up in just before Katrina and post Katrina, and four friends are trying to figure out how to get money. So, Shamik Moore's character is married in, and so his cousin-in-law is a crime boss, I'll say, because he has his hands in more than just yayo, right? So he goes to him and says, "How can we get money?" And then first he has to show you what will happen to you if you don't get him his money.
You have to walk the plank.
You have to walk the plank.
You'll see what that means.
Yeah, you'll see what that means. And then the movie kicks off from there. There's some double cross. Then there's down to 3. Now, the movie is written by I saw his name. He's not black, right? Not that I know of. But the person who wrote the film did not do enough research, right? Like the acting in it is superb. For what they had, the script that they had, they brought it to life. But there's certain things about the story. Instead of it being a feel-good story at the end, because there's some things that happen in the film, you say, I don't know if that would really happen, but being that this is a Indian Creole spirituality that actually dominates over everything in New Orleans, as the story is telling you, then the people would get a second chance outside of a person who was not religiously or spiritually connected into that system. So they get a second chance, but then it seems like there is a cut because they get it appears that they would, well, you'll have to see that, but it comes a point where there is a meritorious manumission scene that comes up where 20 sheriffs get to have target practice on one man who is unarmed, and it's really a weird ending because they kind of chop it and they show you 2 different endings. If they were going to show you the whichever is the alternative ending, they should have left it there.
Yeah.
And let it be a feel good because you were dealing with spirituality. So I don't know if they wanted to show you that actually Indian Creole spirituality actually rules over New Orleans and moves things along. So they wanted to give a meritorious manumission so that the film could pass through. I don't know what happened. So that right there kind of tricks you in the film. And you're like, I don't know. But let's go through it. So what would you want to say real quick about it? What do you think?
Well, first of all, T.I. played Cousin Bass, right? And so T.I. played that part because he was frightening, you know, as the gangster. And it was realistic, so
and
he did a great job.
He had a birthmark on his face, a strange birthmark on his face. That was crazy.
Was it vertigo?
Okay, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that. Could have been a birthmark, too, though.
Oh, well, it was a lot of stuff back and forth over the internet about that.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, so the acting was superb, and it was a stellar cast, and the ending threw me off a little. So, but you definitely will. The film will take you on a ride, so you will definitely go on a ride.
The veterans, Wesley Snipes,
yes,
definitely stepping on people as far as having steps and advancing and stair-stepping over the other actors he's opposite against. Yeah. He brings it.
He does, because he played a character I've never seen him play before.
Yes, he did.
So he did a really good job, because I forgot I was looking at Wesley Snipes. Yeah.
At first, when you first see Terrence Howard, you think of Lucius, right? But then you soon forget about Lucius. And there is a powerful scene between him and T.I. It's got to be like one of the best scenes in the movie where he's the Creole Indian spiritualist that makes things happen in the city. And T.I. comes, and T.I., he asks him, do you believe in the gods? And he says, I believe in one God. Why did he say that? You have to see the film, right? So now, let's go through what's really not so good about the film. The research on, give me the writer's name. The research in the film, listen, we live in Las Vegas, Nevada. It doesn't matter. Not only do they have casinos on the strip, but they have casinos outside of the strip. Like every corner you go on, there's like a casino. It's like liquor stores and gun stores in certain cities. It's like a casino on every corner, right? Okay. The casinos have cameras. If there were 4 dudes sitting up at the one-armed bandits looking at it, and they had hoodies on, the cameras would be focused on them, and security would be walking around. So in that, they didn't set up, if they were going to show that the security was laxed in this casino, right? Then they should, or casinos, because it's multiple casinos. Right. If the security was lax, they should have had them case the joint and show that it was lax, because they have security cameras. You're not getting away with anything. If you got a hoodie, and then next thing you know, you pull a stocking down on your face, security's gonna be in your face.
Yeah, right there.
Guns drawn, saying, "What are you doing, Nick?" Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. So it would have had to be faster. It was a little slow. What's the director's name?
The writer.
Writer.
Paul. Is it Kusheri?
Paul Kusheri, right? Yeah. He didn't do the research necessary. It was like, sometimes you can write scripts and you can write what you think you assume to know, but when people who come from places where there are casinos, it doesn't go down like that, especially if they are chain casinos. If they're coming into a place to take advantage of the people, like some people believe casinos do, they have their whole camera system and all that underway, under tow. It's not going down like that. I'm sure people could tell you in Cleveland, Ohio, they have casinos in Cleveland, Ohio now. There is nothing. If there's some dudes with some hoodies, the security is going to come out and say, "What you doing?" You're sitting there. You're not playing the game. What you doing?
Because not only will there be security walking the floor, there's security behind the camera, and they don't get up. They're in front of the camera.
And they radio, and it's plain
Right.
clothes security, and then there's security, right? All of them packing. So, in that aspect, that was not real. What's going on to Tanya M. Congress? She said,
Hey,
"Hi
Tanya.
guys, I've been here since before the beginning. Thanks for tuning in." Listen. So that right there, Cutthroat City, that was phony. It's a couple of few other things in there that was phony. The detective at first, she didn't catch me as a detective. She didn't convince me. But then as the movie went on, she opened up and then she arced, and I said, okay, I give her a pass. But that wasn't too good at first, right? So let's go through it. Cinematography on the movie. That's a 10. Character development, the actors really did that, along with RZA for what they had as far as the script was concerned.
Job.
So that's a 10.
Yeah.
Character arc in the end, the arcing on it didn't make any sense because the spiritual guy gave another chance. So that is a 5. That's a 5 because that's poor decision making, and it was like meritorious manumission. Look that up when y'all get a chance, when y'all want to know what meritorious manumission is. And when you watch the film, you say, yeah, that was some meritorious manumission. The locations of where they shot the film, that's an excellent. That's a 10. The use of pacing and timing within the edit. I'm going to split that up. The casino scenes, that's a 4. The other scenes, as far as relationship is concerned, and relationship between the 4 friends to turn 3 friends, that's a 10.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Giving you the experience of how the hierarchy of New Orleans works.
Right.
Maybe that might have been the only thing that he actually researched in Cutthroat City.
Definitely.
And I said, and it opened my eyes to a lot, something more than a show that we're watching, which we're going to talk about, called Your Honor. We're going to talk about that, but not today. But that's based in New Orleans too, and it's really super, but we're going to get to that. I give that a 10. Terrence Howard really pulls that character out, and he's not using a New Orleans accent at all.
No, it's just
but it's just great acting.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the veterans in this, great acting. The newcomers in this, I have to really give the guy who played Tupac, I really have to give him credit because he transformed himself outside of, because he looks a lot like Tupac.
Right.
And it could have been easy because he had double guns. He could have been easy to play it like Tupac, but he didn't. Give him kudos.
Yeah.
He gets a 10 by himself.
Yeah.
So Cutthroat City, what would you rate it?
I would definitely, the acting was superb. The storyline was interesting. Like you said, the cinematography was great. The film, it was a lot of energy in it from beginning to end. And like you said, I mean, because I was going to mention that scene, if you had like that powerful scene with Tupac, we talking about Tupac, the powerful scene between Terrence Howard and T.I. was powerful. Yeah. And then the actor who, Ship, right? He
has come into his own.
Definitely come into his own, because in all of his scenes, he stands out.
He stands out.
Yeah, so I would give it a 7.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good. It's just the ending for me threw me off.
It seems like at the ending, it seems like they said, we forgot about the FEMA plot, and we just got to throw that in there.
Right.
They could have just left that part of the plot out of it altogether. But go ahead. So what would you rate it, though?
Yeah.
What would you rate it? What would you give it? The film as a totality whole. We know the acting was superb. That gets a 10.
The acting gets a 10. But
overall,
overall, I would give it a 7.
Yeah. I'll give it a little lower because the man didn't do his research. And so I'm going to give it about a 5. But it's entertaining to watch, but it's some things in there. Is it entertaining? Yes. Is it some things in there that you say, hey, you know what? That's just not going to happen. Not in any world. You're going to say, yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't believe that. And you're going to say, yeah, man, that's some bull larky right there, right? So, yeah, so I give it a 5, right? Is it entertaining to watch? Yes. Is it realistic? No.
And Cat Graham was a highlight in the film too.
Right.
She was believable, as the girlfriend and as T.I.'s cousin. I love the scene between her and T.I. With the two cousins.
Lets you know how menacing he can be, right?
Yeah.
So let's moving right along to the next film. Is produced by A24 Studios. That's Brad Pitt Studios, and it's called Boys State. Okay, so about 1,111 boys each year go to this place in Texas, right, where they learn about government, right? Where they learn about government. You have to see this film, right? You have to see this film because it's very important. In Black History Month, you should know about what's going on. It's on Apple Plus, right? It's on Apple Plus, Apple TV Plus. But they go to a retreat. It's a retreat, and it's run by the American Legion, and it's teaching the next crop of politicians how to be politicians. So they split them up to about 500 in one group, 500 in another group. One is called the Nationalist Party. One is called the Federalist Party. Boy, I'm twisting of the tongue there. Federalist. Oh my God. Anyway, moving on. And each one has to come up with a state chair, or national chair, right? And then they have a state chair, and then they have the various candidates for the various positions within state government, and then it goes up to governor, right? So you need to watch this film because this is a perfect example in this film of why there is not such a thing. Why there is not such a thing as the Black and Brown Coalition. There is a situation that happens where the Federalist, there it is, party chairman, state chairman, wants to seize on something that happens in one of the caucuses with the Nationalist Party chair. And so he starts to spread rumors, and he takes it into the next caucus because the caucuses are broke up by states, by different precincts in the state. So they go there, just like how you do voting, right? So he takes this there. So, at first, so there's a Hispanic guy, and then there's a white guy for the Federalist Party. They're like locked at the hip, the two white guys, right? They're locked at the hip, lockstep, talking, communicating. The black chair who comes from Chicago and the Latino candidate for governor aren't in lockstep. They hardly ever really discuss anything, but the chair keeps the Nationalist Party from succeeding because the Nationalist Party, the first thing they want to do is succeed from the Union, and he's like, this is not what this is about. We're not succeeding, right? So they wanted to recall him, but for some reason he didn't get recalled because his mouthpiece was that strong, and he talked dominant. He didn't talk weak or conciliatory. He talked like straight from Chicago, let me kick it to you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so that's how he first, in a sea of white people, that's how he got elected, and then he stayed true to who he was. So when they get into this next caucus, the one chair from the other party wants to start some mess, so he stood up to talk. The candidate, the Mexican candidate, says, you've done a lot, but I'll take it from here, right? And you have to watch it to see if it causes him to lose the election, right? Causes him to lose the governorship. I will give you a hint. There is no black and brown coalition, so it amongst the sea of white folks who were patting him on the back. They haven't learned. A lot of Latinos have not learned yet. This is what this shows you, right? You have to watch this movie, Boys State. That if a white person pats you on the back, you're doing something wrong, because in the end, they're gonna cut you out of whatever they're doing, because that's just part of the game. That's part of the rap, right? So when you watch, it's very important that you watch this film, because we talk about it a lot Monday through Friday on hashtag Observations TFR about the game and about politics. And this actually shows you how these are the next generation of people that you see. Guess who went through this over the years?
He makes an appearance, right?
No, he doesn't make an appearance.
I thought Cory Booker was.
No, Cory Booker. They showed his photo.
Oh, they showed the photo. Okay.
Right, he was there. They show him. Cory Booker was in it. Okay. Years before, Cheney was in it. Bunch of different politicians that are in the halls of the Senate and the Congress.
So this
today.
is a stepping stone for like an internship.
Yeah, well,
like from there they move right into politics.
Oh yeah, a lot they do. And so when you wonder why Cory Booker is not stronger, it appears, that's the reason. So let's go through it. Cinematography on it is a 10. The choosing of introducing you to various characters to tell the story, that's a 10. Character arc, it really does tell you something true to life, that's a 10. The location in at the Capitol in Texas, beautifully shot. They're actually in the well making decisions, that's a 10. The true to life of how politics actually works and how you advance an idea or policy, it's a 10. Overall, Boys State is a 10 and is well worth watching, right? Well worth watching, well worth seeing, right? And we're going to get the Caucasian films off the way first. All right, then we're going to get to the Black History Month stuff. All right, so here we go. The next movie up is Borat, subsequent movie. The subsequent movie film. Borat, the subsequent movie film.
Oh, that's what it's...
Now, if you saw the first Borat, right? If you saw the first Borat, you're not going to be disappointed.
Not at all.
You're not going to be disappointed. Matter of fact, this has to be one of the most entertaining films that we have seen.
It will have you cracking up laughing.
It will have you cracking up laughing. If you're drinking something, you're going to spit it out. I'm telling you that this is one of the most hilarious. Now, the first one dealt with a lot of vulgar stuff. Now, he relies, there's some vulgar stuff in this, but he relies less on the vulgarity and deals more with the situation comedy, right? It's the situations that he finds himself in that brings you to laughter. But there are some scenes that, viewer discretion is advised. Though they say this film is good for 3 years and older, I would totally disagree with that. But this film is hilarious, and this time he's joined by his quote unquote 15-year-old daughter, right? And his whole goal his whole goal is to get to the vice president, right? But in the meantime, but who he really gets to though is Rudy Giuliani. Now, when you see the scenes with Rudy Giuliani, you're gonna be like, what? You know what I mean? Like he had to, like they had to save Rudy Giuliani. When you watch it, you'll see how they had to save him because it was strange. I want to say it was real strange with Rudy Giuliani, right? If you like the last Borat, you will love this Borat. The subsequent movie film is playing on Amazon Prime right now, right?
And the thing about it is, even though this is like a part 2, even if you haven't seen the first Borat, you can watch this one and just immediately pick up because it's just hilarious.
Because he recaps what happened from the film 14 years ago to what happened to him in between time. As you see, it's good for 3-year-olds and older. No, it's not.
Diverse cast.
Diverse cast in it, right? Yeah. And you will when you see the situations that he gets into, you are going to be cracking your side. Like I can't believe that the people believe, and he uses different disguises too, because what he finds going back on the street is everybody knows who Borat is, so they're chasing him, trying to get autographs and shit, right?
So he had to switch up his look.
Get different. There's the one scene when he walks into the Republican CPAC. He said, how could I get into the CPAC? You are going to be rolling your side, right? So cinematography is a 10. Character development, introducing new characters, that's a 10. The character arc, definitely a 10. The use of situation comedy with just a little vulgarity, that's a 10. The situations with Pence and Giuliani is worth the experience, right? The debutante.
So I have to name some of the cast.
Go ahead, name some cast.
Although there are tons of non-actors in the film, which makes it hilarious because these are like everyday real people. There are a few actors, right? So, of course, Sacha Baron Cohen plays Borat. And then Maria Baklava plays his daughter, Tutor. And then Tom Hanks has an appearance in the film. Jason Wilder is in the film. Rita Wilson. Danny Popovsky is in the film. So, but it is hilarious. I would definitely, for everything you said, same scores across the board. I would definitely give it a 10 because right now we need laughter in the world. And this film delivers.
It delivers laughter. You will be cracking your side at Borat.
From beginning to end.
Movie film.
He is a fool in a good way.
Yeah, so I give it a 10, right? And moving on to the next film that we have up, it's called The Cuban, right? The Cuban stars, the main star in it is Louis Gossett Jr. If you haven't seen our interview with Louis Gossett Jr. that we did at one of the film festivals a few years back, you should definitely go watch that on the Film Review Live channel. Just type in Louis Gossett Jr. interview Lordland Films and it'll come up. But Louis Gossett Jr. plays the Cuban. Now, we here talk about American Black, right? Well, he is an American Black, and he was tapped by a Cuban to play this part. When the Cuban wrote the script, when the director wrote the script, he had Lou Gossett in mind for the role to play the Cuban, and Lou Gossett, as who he is and how he embodies the Cuban, you believe it. I believe in looking at Cubans and not seeing the Cubans that were once Mississippi slave owners who went over and mixed in with the people, and you see they were expelled by Castro, and those are the ones that you see mostly in Florida today, were the ones that were expelled by Castro that were trying to, you know, when Castro went Soviet Union, when he went communist, they didn't like it, and it was battles, and so he expelled them out, and then they wind up in Florida. But those are like the descendants of Mississippi slave owners who went over there to do what they do best and colonize. But the revolution happened, and their colonization was over. Right? So that's giving you a brief. Now you have to go research that for yourself, but that's the brief history of what you see. Why, like, a lot of the Cubans vote Republican, even though Carter was the one that opened the door for them. You watch Scarface, you know. But anyway, look. This film is beautiful because he's in a retirement home, close to being sent to palliative care, right? And if anyone knows what palliative care is, you know that when you get to palliative care, you hit that reverse L. If you're not on the main hallway coming from the elevator, if you hit that reverse L, that's pretty much it's pretty much going to be the wrap. It is the wrap of life, right? And so you're there to be slowly Kevorkian dripped. They took what Kevorkian did and put in a drip, and they call it palliative care now. But anyway, long story short, for people who haven't experienced it yet, that's what it is.
From one particular hospital we're talking about,
right? But
in
I mean,
Ohio.
that's what it is, right? And so, he's in a retirement home, and he is suffering from dementia, and he doesn't speak. He hardly eats, and he's a real agitated person. Well, a new nursing assistant comes to work there. She is Afghani. She's not Cuban. She's Afghani, but her grandfather liked Cuban music, and he introduced her to Cuban music, and she would sing with him, and she got pretty good at singing. So she finds out that he's Cuban, and so she brings in the record collection and automatically brings him from out of his comatose like state, and he's talking, and so then their relationship builds from there. Meanwhile, in between time, there is protocol of how you're supposed to do things, and the person who is in head of the retirement home doesn't quite like what she's doing, so there's butting heads there. Now, all throughout this film, you think that he has a love affair with a woman who is Cuban, right? Now, when you see him as a little boy, he's playing baseball, stickball, in the street with other Cubans that are dark-skinned. But when he gets older, he's playing in a band. He's the only dark-skinned Cuban in the whole band. It's really weird. It's really weird if they grew up as childhood friends, but the ones that you saw him playing baseball with were dark-skinned Cubans, right? Just an observation. Which is leading into our bigger observation about this film, right? The music, the storyline is good until it gets to one point where the person that was his love interest is still alive. And the woman who befriended him as the nurse's aide writes, right? I'm going to give him spoilers here on this, right? She writes, and she writes back and says, "Oh, it must be some mistake, because I have always been engaged to one of the other band members, and he knew that." So you go through this whole movie thinking that it's one way, but it's another way, and it kind of cheapens it, and it cheapens who he is as an embodiment of a black Cuban, a black man for all intents and purposes. In the end of the film, which I'm disturbed by. In the end of the film, she's Afghani. She's not Cuban, but she's light skinned and she likes to sing. So she's called to she said, if you're ever in Cuba, come on over. So that's when Cuba was over, right? During the years of Obama when Cuba was over. And so she goes over with her boyfriend, who is a white American, right? And everybody in there is light skinned and she fits right in and they're singing and they're playing, and at the end it's about love, but to me it's about the love of the fair-skinned Cuban and how black Cubans are just used as a placement or a placemat. Yes, to get you to join people together of like mind, but that's what it's about. So when they say it's about love, I don't too much agree with that part of it in the Cuban. I don't too much agree with that. When you see it, it gives you a feeling like, yo, what's going on with this? Like, yo, on a live interview, on an interview Q&A, Lou Gossett was on there, and he was saying how the African rhythms were very similar to the Cuban rhythms because the Cuban rhythms come from Africa. So Afro-Cuban is what you were hearing in the movie, and the Cuban, who is a light-skinned Cuban, they were kind of uncomfortable with Louis Gossett saying it. I could just see it because he kept coming back to it and kept referencing it and kept saying that you get who you are from Africa, right? The culture. You get the music and the culture and the drumming and the food. It actually comes from Africa, and then it's a mixed in with whoever colonized you, right? And so that's why I didn't too much care for that in the film, because in the end, it makes the black Cuban look like a fool. What you gotta say? Well, give me the
Louis Gossett Jr. did an excellent job as the Cuban, right? So, of course, starring Louis Gossett Jr., he played Luis Garcia. Anna Golja played Nina. Shava Niger. Also, Sharon Agadoshlu. I apologize for butchering these names. But yeah, so it was a stellar.
It's an ensemble cast.
Yeah.
The acting in it for what they had to work with in the script.
Right.
That's a 10, right?
Right.
The cinematography on it, the use of telling the story, you can see the images that they use in telling the story. That's a 10.
Right.
Character arc. Get at a 10. Character development, introducing the characters to you. That's a 10. The plot line, through line, it's all the way okay until we get to the end, which drops it down. That gives that a 7, right? The locations of where they shot, right? That's a 10, right? What can I say? I mean, that's really all I can say about it. It really gives it, it really dampens it down because of the obvious white Cuban racism in this piece. Is supposed to be about love, right? Now, if she had wrote the letter and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, when he left Cuba and because of the embargo that happened, I just married the other person, but I was deeply in love with him. Thank you for writing." Then that could be understandable, but that right there really dampens the film for me.
Well, for me, the bright side, besides Louis Gossett's acting, his acting was superb. The bright side for me was I love the relationship between the Cuban and his home health aide, right? And so, because that's what palliative care is supposed to be and should be, right? and we've experienced it with loved ones, but seeing like the love and the attention that is showered on that patient, because palliative care is the last stop, right? You have different types of palliative care. You have the palliative care facility, and then you have the home health palliative care where they come to your home. But he's in a facility, right, which is providing palliative care and his ending days. And I love like the love and the attention and the relationship that he has with her, because it's kind of like, it's like a grandfather, granddaughter, father-daughter type of relationship.
Right.
So the relationship was beautiful.
Yeah, it was good. So what would you give it?
I would give it a 7. The ending, I wasn't, again, with this film, just like in the previous film that I talked about, wasn't too happy about the ending, but the film had its, bright moments.
Had its moments, had its acting moments, right? So I give it a 7 too. Is it something to watch? Is it something that you would go to Hulu if you didn't have a subscription on Hulu to watch? I would say not. But if you like Louis Gossett Jr. and you like his acting style, because he does bring it in this film as the Cuban, then I would. If you're a fan, then you should go watch it for Lou Gossett Jr. Absolutely. Right. Moving on to our next film. It is Malcolm and Marie. Right? Malcolm and Marie. Now, this film right here is, I want to tell you off the rip that this film is a tour de force. It is a tour de force. It is set up, the cinematography on this, the use of you moving the camera to tell you the story, between the cinematography and the edits to tell you the story and to show you when you come into the other person's point of view. Beautifully done telling this story. I'm going to tell you. Beautifully done telling this story, right? That's one thing. Malcolm and Marie. We're breaking down the technical side of why you are looking at the relationship. That this is a hour and some minutes of argument, to be kind. That it's an hour and some minutes of argument, but why you're cringing, but why you can't take your eyes off of the situation is not only due to the acting, but it is also due to the cinematography and the edit. First of all, this is not a true story, as I just said right there, but it's shot in black and white, right? Which gives it, when you see the opening credits, right, it gives you that classic feel, right? And if anything else, the classic feel of seeing two black characters in a film, in the classic feel, is incredible. It's the classic feel, but the dialogue is modern. Now, about the dialogue, the script writer in this, Malcolm and Marie, the dialogue of the interplay between the two people. One can be a protagonist, one can be an antagonist, and then it switches, and then the other person becomes an antagonist, and the other person becomes the protagonist. I mean, it's really masterfully done, this film right here, right? That's why you can't take your eyes off of it, right? Now, it opens up and they show you the house, right, where they're at. Then you see a car in the distance pulling up. Very kind of Hitchcockian in that aspect of it, right? So the car pulls up and then next thing you hear the car door close, and then the two people come in, and it's a celebration. It appears because this man's film has done so well, and the people are reviewing the film, but it soon turns twisted. Right now, everything that's happening originally when you first see it, the camera is outside of the house, and you're hearing the story from outside the house, right? And so so it goes from close in, cropped in shots to wide shots to show you what's happening, focusing on the female character,
Right.
and it's letting you know, even though, and you can hear the jovialness of the male character. You can look at her face and tell, hey, this isn't too jovial.
Yeah, for her.
It's for her. It's not too jovial, and she's just sitting there. And so she begins to prepare a box of mac and cheese, right? And so she clips the butter, she puts it in there, and then they're outside, and you can see this. And then when she pours the dry noodles into the water, the camera cuts on action, and you see it go in the water. Then the scene is on the inside. Beautiful cinematography and editing work on the part of the editor to bring the story in. You're outside. It's impersonal. Once the macaroni and cheese goes into the hot water, into the pot, then it turns personal. It goes impersonal. You're just on the outside looking in, till you're in the middle of the thick of it, right? Beautiful cinematography. You have to, the storyline on it, the acting of these two, soon, I mean, they're not veterans yet, but they played this like veterans. I don't think, I mean, I said this, I don't think that Denzel would have been able to play this to the level that his son played this at that age, right? He at his age now, it wouldn't make sense. The story, what the story is about, right? They're playing older than what they are. They're playing a decade back. They're playing Generation X. I think it's a period. It's back. They're playing Generation X in this because of not only what they're talking about, the conversation they have, but the music selection that they choose to tell the story. Right? It's Generation X being told here. Right? Let's go through the cast. Well, it's only two cast members.
Yeah. Starring Zendaya as Marie and John David Washington as Malcolm. And yeah, what I love about the music is it's just like, it's timeless because it's different types of music, right? And from different
musical genres that Generation X would appreciate most, but because this is a story about Generation X, it's moving the next generations who enjoy this to start to enjoy the music that Generation X enjoy, which is not just their music of their time,
but also with jazz.
That's right. That's
soul and just a combination of everything.
That's right. So Malcolm and Marie, right? So we already told you cinematography is a 10. Character development, introducing you to each one of the characters, living, breathing. That's a 10. Matter of fact, the house itself is a character. Outside and inside the house is a living, breathing character in this. You can tell through the cinematography that their lives are sometimes they're the smallest in the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Beautifully shot. It just, each frame tells a story. It tells a story within film grammar, right? Character arc. Oh my God. I mean, it is a 10. the script, I have to throw the script in there, the cleverness of the writing of switching both characters, making one the protagonist one time and the other one the antagonist another time. Beautifully written. That's a 10.
It was written and directed by Sam Levinson.
Yeah, Sam Levinson. That's right. Beautifully done.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, but this black and white really brings this piece out, and it makes you really look at this person, because this look on the black and white gives Zendaya that classic look.
Yes.
Right? That classic femme fatale look, right? You're going to love this. If you have not seen this yet, it's going to make you cringe. And if you're in a relationship, you're married or you're single, it's going to make you have conversation. And then you're going to be like, yo, what's going on here? Like, somebody's got to stop.
So what I love about it is like the realism in it, right? And like the conversation that they have, the argument, like the going back and forth, because like there are periods in the film where you're like on his side, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're on her side, then you like jump back and forth, right? Because they both have like great points.
All right.
And you can tell that they love each other. Mm-hmm. And then I agree with you. Well, we talked about it while watching the film. You were saying that you can tell that this is like one of those build-up type of arguments. It's like this could possibly be like a one-time thing, because this is the moment where everything was put on the table.
Well, actually, I was saying it's a combination of arguments that people in relationships will have over time, that is placed in this particular place at this time. So it's like these are arguments that people have that they get over, that makes the relationship stronger, right? And so it was condensed into this time period at that moment in time with them. But this would be arguments that people will have over a long span of time. Right? They wouldn't all come compact into this story, but that's what makes it so unique.
Right.
That it's all compact arguments that you would have over years.
Right.
You know, things, arguments, somebody peeved you for some reason and it just kicks off. It is right there all together in one framework, right? One moment in time is shown in this film with arguments that would be over a longer stretch of time, if you see what I'm saying. All condensed together. That's what makes it so beautiful, and you're sitting up there like, wow. And then at first, I remember you were saying they probably gonna break out. I said, no, I think this is an example of arguments they will have over time.
But at the end, it's
gonna make their relationship stronger.
Yeah. But at the end, I said, oh, they'll be together, because they were able to talk it out. Because the way they were like going at it with each other and like pulling out the knives, I'm like, okay, this isn't going to last. But then as the night, went along, right, and the apologies started happening and the eyes start softening up, and then you can just see the love is there. And then you see by the time they get to the end of the film, you can see that there's still one, as a unit. But you know what? This gave me a feel for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I remember watching that film starring Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, and it was about them and their relationship. And another film, it kind of War of the Roses, right? So I love relationship films, when the couples, they're talking about their relationship and what they're going through, and so I mean it's realism, right? Because they talk about emotions and wanting to be appreciated, and you can be so busy and involved in what you're doing that you can overlook how someone else is feeling, right? In the films that I mentioned, along with this film, like it's mentioned in each of those films. You know, right. Everyone wants to be acknowledged and respected and understood, right?
Right.
So this is a really, really good film. And I don't know, for anyone that doesn't like understand this or can't get a, I guess maybe you would have to be or have been in a relationship,
right,
maybe to understand it.
Right.
Because I know I saw online that some people didn't understand it, or a lot of people did, but I just assume for those who didn't understand it, maybe they've never been in a relationship or have never been in love.
Right.
Because this is a well done piece.
They say this is not a love story, but in actuality it is.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So what would you give it? What would you give?
Definitely a 10, because the acting was superb. Like, I've never seen Zendaya act at this level. Mm-hmm. I mean, we reviewed like a lot of her films.
Usually she plays a child.
And she does a great job in acting, right?
Mm-hmm.
In all of her different roles, right? Even on her TV show Euphoria, she took it to a whole nother level as an addict, right? But this piece right here, she's an adult, right? Yeah. And she really, really, I mean, her acting is superb. And of course, John Washington
Davis.
John.
Look at that. I'm going to lead you through it. Mr. Washington.
Yeah, Mr. Washington. He did an excellent job because, you know, we've seen him in previous work and we reviewed his other films.
But this is definitely.
But this right here, he's like, I see his character in this film. I'm like seeing Malcolm, right? So when I see John David Washington acting in this film, like, I'm like, okay, so this is not the same acting in the previous film.
Right.
Like, you know, he embodies the character. He does like a really great job. I mean, he takes this character to different.
So they step.
Yeah, they do.
They step and they arc.
Because you see his highs and his lows, both characters, right? So they do, like you said, they really arc in this film.
So you gave it a 10?
The 10, definitely.
Yeah, so I give it a 10 too.
They take you on a roller coaster ride.
They do.
Emotional roller coaster ride.
They do. They really do.
In a good way.
In a good way.
Because it gets to a point where you like both characters and you're like, okay, make up, stop arguing. And then just when you think it's calm, then here comes the storm. But each of them have valid points, right? Mm-hmm. So really, really good writing.
Really good writing. So people, moving right along to our next film, because you know that's a 10. This film right here is a 10. Moving right along to our next film, it is called Judas and the Black Messiah. Judas and the Black Messiah, which is debuting on HBOMax on February 12th, 2021, is a movie which is devastatingly entertaining while informing, while bringing you angst, is Judas and the Black Messiah, right?
Right.
Let's go through the cast first.
Starring, and before we get to the cast, can I say I have been waiting for this movie for like years. Like when they announced it, even before they mentioned the casting, I'm like, I have to see that film. It's going to be a great film, and
it
is a great film. Okay, so starring Daniel Kaluuya. Lakeith Stanfield, Dominique Fishback. We reviewed Dominique Fishback during the Deuces.
That's right, she was on Deuces.
And we said she was a breakout star on the Deuces on HBO because her acting was on point then. So when I learned that she was going to be in this film, because we already know that Lakeith Stanfield and David Kalua.
Tanya, that is the same guy from Get Out. He put on about 40 pounds.
Yes.
To play this role.
That's dedication.
And that is dedication. And that's why I'm saying
dedication.
That if they snub this film, right?
Well, didn't
the Golden Globes gave a nomination to the closing song. Right?
To her. Right.
To her.
Right.
You know, if they snub this film, it's going to, I'm talking about the other award shows. If they snub this film, well, we're going to get into it. Sit back, relax, because we're going to break this film down without bringing out spoilers. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we said Daniel Kalua, right? He plays Fred Hampton. Lakeith Stanfield plays William O'Neill. Dominique Fishback plays Deborah Johnson, right? And then also starring Jesse Plemons, Ashton Sanders.
Now, Jesse Plemons, you're going to end up hating him.
Who plays Billy Mitchell.
You're going to hate him by the end of the film. I'm telling you, go ahead.
Well, during the credits, right? When the movie was beginning, and when I saw Ashton Sanders' name, because we reviewed him, he's another breakout star.
Yeah.
I was like, this is gonna be good, right? So Ashton Sanders plays Larry Robertson. Algie Smith, he plays Jack Winters, and we know him from the New Edition film, and he's a really good actor. So when we saw, that he was gonna be in it too, so I'm like reading the credits, I'm like, okay. Because we already knew about Daniel Kalua and then Lakeith Stanfield and Dominique Fishback. But once I saw the names of the other actors that I just named, I said, okay, this is going to be good. Dominique Thorne is in it. Jermaine Fowler is in it. Terrell A. Hill is in it. Little Rail. How could I mess up his name? Little Rail is also in the film. Daryl Brick Gibson, Nick Finnick.
It's a long.
It's like a.
Oh, you gotta mention him because he plays J. Edgar Hoover.
Oh, is it Robert Longstreet?
Martin Sheen.
Oh, wait, okay. Why don't they have him on here? Yes. Oh, there he is. Yeah, Martin Sheen. He does play J. Edgar Hoover. Right. And yeah.
So let me go back down and look at the list. Let me see, who am I looking for right quick to talk about? Oh, Algie Smith plays a pivotal role in the film also. Yeah. He shows you when a person gets fed up, they're fed up. Okay.
Dominique Thorne, can't leave her out. Judy Harmon, the other female.
That's right. Now. When you're fed up, and that's it, right? Yeah. So look, the synopsis of the film, based in Chicago, a self-help organization must battle crooked police and the federal government to be free. That's what it is. In the meantime, now, this film is full of so much information. First of all, the film is entertaining, right? Okay. But it's bringing a lot of information, and at the same time, depending on what your stance is on the Black Panther Party, on Malcolm X, the Black Panther Party, being black, American black, all that, will set your pace on what you think and believe about the film as a whole, right? As you're watching it, right? Shaka King directed, and he co-wrote the screenplay with Will Burson, right? If you really want to know what was actually going on, because Fred Hampton's girlfriend, wife, I'm just gonna call her his wife, is a consultant on the film. So this isn't something where you're walking in and this is not going to be true to fact, because she was there during most of the happenings that took place. She was there. And so they break out and they tell this story to you, right?
You're looking at
and
18 months for the stolen car.
It's just an incredible piece. First of all, you find out that at the end, which you're not going to give any spoilers, see, you know, everybody knows, whoever has seen the story. If you watched what's the film, The Trial of the Chicago 7 on Netflix, right? The Trial of the Chicago 7. You should watch that film before this film comes out on February 12th, because what happens to Fred Hampton happens during the same time as the trial of the Chicago 7, right? And so you should watch that film, because what happens to him is referenced, because he was in the courtroom every day,
Right.
fighting for his fellow comrade, right, who was unjustly arrested for inciting a riot, and all he did was come to give a speech, and he was out, but they picked him up, and they were planning on trying to give all of the people, originally it was Chicago 8, and he got dropped out because you'll watch the film, right? So he was in the courtroom every day until what happens to Fred Hampton happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
The film goes into detail of how everyone's heard about them shooting up the apartment he was in, but they don't tell you in any of the documentaries of the past. They don't tell you how they made sure that Fred Hampton was dead. Now so the film right there brings it to you.
Yeah.
Straight no chaser.
Right.
Straight no chaser
Right.
on the Chicago Police Department.
Right.
You know, during that time period. Straight no chaser.
Yeah.
Right? Now, Fred Hampton had an uncanny way of being able to bring different factions together. This is what the film shows you, right? Now, if the factions stuck together, that's a different story.
Right.
But he had a way of bringing them together to move forward, and that's what they were afraid of.
Right.
They were afraid of, J. Edgar Hoover was afraid of creating a black messiah. Now, let's break this down, because everyone knows that's in the COINTELPRO papers, right? That J. Edgar Hoover says that they're trying to stop the black messiah from moving the black people along, right? So, that's why they were hard on Malcolm X, they were hard on Martin Luther King, they were hard on Medgar Evers, they were hard on any other black leadership that had a way of moving the people. So if you say that you want to stop the black messiah, what are you actually saying? When they was totally oblivious of this, or maybe they weren't. What are you actually saying about yourself? If he is if you're trying to stop a black messiah, then what are you saying about yourself? Who are you relative to the black messiah?
He's the devil.
Right. I mean, let's put this together. Like, if you're trying to stop the black messiah, you stopped King, you stopped Medgar Evers, you stopped Malcolm X, you stopped plenty of others. A lot of the African leaders that were for real Pan-Africanism were assassinated around the same time that Martin Luther King was assassinated. And some people say that it was the CIA, right? Some people say it was the CIA, right? So what are you saying about yourself? So there's a lot of, I'm just gonna pull out some things, but I'm not going to give the plot line to the film, because February 12th, you have to see this film. This film is a tour de force.
It is.
It will have you gripped from the very beginning. It has Afro-mance in it. Not only does it have the struggle, but it has Afro-mance and how love comes about, right? What you gotta say?
Produced. So the film was produced by Charles D. King, Ryan Coogler, and Shaka King, right? again, I was like excited, looking forward to seeing this film, and then the darn pandemic happened, and I was so happy. Well, you will still be able to see this in the theaters, but I was happy when they announced also that we would be able to see it on HBOMax, and honestly, that's the reason why we picked up HBOMax. And so, seeing this film, I felt the same emotion that I felt. I've seen plenty of with biofilms, right? But I felt the same emotion that I did when I was in the theater and I saw X, right? So the writing was just powerful. Like Daniel Kaluuya, I felt like I was looking at Fred Hampton. Like he embodied Fred Hampton, right? And like you said, he even put on weight. He was dedicated to the role. He was real dedicated, right? And it's just the acting, like with him and Lakeith Stanfield. How many scenes I'm like, can they not see how he really feels? Because Lakeith Stanfield, like, although his mouth was saying one thing, the acting in his eyes said another thing, right? So the acting was superb, and I was so invested. Like when the film, like as it's going along, I'm like, oh my gosh! Even though we know what the outcome is, you become so engrossed in the film. Like I'm sitting there, like just crying, and I'm like, although I know what the ending is gonna be, but it's just like you just see all of like the heart and soul that Fred Hampton, as well as all the other Panthers, invested in their organization and how much they love their community. Yeah, they love it, right? And then they got together with like Fred Hampton, like you said, he brought in people from other groups, right? And it was just about a movement bringing people together. And Lakeith Stanfield, what I love about it is you can tell that he was torn, right? So his character was the tortured character for me, right? Because he had, you'll see the film, and I'm sure most of you know the history, but although this is something that he felt he had to do to save himself, but on the other hand, you can tell that he was beginning to build a bond, right, with Fred Hampton as well as the other members. So you can see how his character was tortured. And then I love the love story between Fred Hampton and his wife, Deborah, right? So you have like all of this going on, and then you have a love story, and then it's about community. And
you know, we don't hold nothing back. I'm getting a warning saying, heads up, we detect copyright, right, audio and video on your stream. And there's none at all. May be temporarily blocked. Oh. They did this with 76 Days, which was the film on the quarantine that happened in Wuhan, right? Obviously, this film, none of the other films that we put up, none of the other things that we put up today said anything. I didn't get any warning about that at all. But as soon as I put this film up about Judas and the Black Messiah, all of a sudden I get this warning about it being blocked. See, we don't
still threatened by him in death.
Because of the fact that the film brings you more than just a fictitious story. It's well researched. That's what I like about this film. It's well researched. It's not just what you think. The wife is the consultant on the film. Right. So now I have to go in and let them know that if they don't block it all the way, they're probably going to block it all the way, right? And so now I have to go in and say, if they don't block it all the way, that it's an educational piece and that is fair use, and then get it released. But if not, it's because they don't want you to know what's in this film. So February 12th, you have to watch it. Now, this is what I said. This was the this was the brief review that I gave on it after we saw it, right? It was 2 days ago we watched it, a brief review. This movie is an incredible piece which sheds light on details which are not shown in documentaries produced closer to that time period. It also shows how a wife, friend, revolutionary mother, unlike Coretta or Betty, kept the spirit of the husband Slade alive in the son to move forward to victory. Salute to the filmmakers, writer, director, producer, cinematographer, camera 2, crew, and cast. THR Podcast Live, you found the spot. The full review this Sunday, right? Which this is what's going on right now. Listen, there's a lot of people who try to emulate the Panthers. They try to emulate Martin Luther King. They try to emulate. But when you watch films that drop the total reality, especially when one of the members were one of the closest people to him, one of the members on the advisory staff to put this film together was actually there.
Yes.
It shows me that the people are just emulating. They're not willing to take that bullet. They're not willing to take that jail time. They're not willing to do that, right? And so that's what that shows. And that's a disappointment that will come up as a warning, right? Temporarily, hopefully. Anyway, people, let's break down and talk about what the film is, right? This is unusual. It's real unusual that they would do that. Plus, I purposely turn it down so that you won't hear it as much, right? So let's go through it. So cinematography on the film is a 10. The cinematography on it is a 10.
Yeah.
The character development, introducing you to the characters, introducing you to the future love interest, introducing you to the writers that were members of the Panthers, introducing you to the Judas early on. Actually, to tell you the truth, I know that people wouldn't understand it. Daniel Kaluuya is not actually the lead of this movie, right? He's not actually the lead of this movie. Lakeith Stanfield is the lead of the movie because it's Judas and the Black Messiah. The story wraps around what the Judas did, right? But they know that most people wouldn't be able to grasp that and understand that, and so they made Daniel Kaluuya, top billing, and then they co-bill. But actually Lakeith Stanfield's ability to emote. I used to tell my actors when we get to the close-up, what you're saying with your mouth is one thing, but your eyes tell the audience what's really going on. You know what I'm saying? I turned that in. Yeah, I turned that in last week. Yeah, sure I did. Right? It's your eyes that's telling you, and the character, your opposite, either catches on, depending on how it's written in the script, or they don't, but the audience understands. Right? And so he pulls this off. He should have a supporting actor, actually lead actor, because he's actually the lead in this film. But like I said, supporting actor is good, right? Character arc. The arc of each character, from Hampton, from Fred Hampton to Willie Boy, to the Judas, beautifully written. And then you see the people are talking about, we are the party of self-reliance and self-defense, right? You see when the time comes who stands up to that and who doesn't, right? You see who stands up to that and who doesn't, and what happens while he's away, and who steps up from the community that steps in and not necessarily went along with what he was talking about, but saw that they were true, real writers when they went up against the Chicago Police Department.
Yeah.
Oh man, look at that. So that's what that is, right? So, you know, we're sitting up there and we're watching it, right? So we're sitting there watching it. Okay. So we're sitting up there watching it and we say, yeah, I mean, like, this is a good film right here. So automatically, character arc, that's a 10. Storyline, through line, that's a 10. The use of location, beautifully done, that's a 10. The use of cars and clothes and all that, that's a 10, right? Music, that's a 10, right? Block through the coverage, okay. So I'm looking at the screen. I'm being distracted here because they're telling me I'm no longer blocked. They blocked it totally, so people wouldn't be able to see it. Then they freed it up, right? Okay. So anyway, going on with it. So, the use of period piece of the clothing, the cars, the location again to build the period. That is a 10.
Makeup and wardrobe.
That's a 10, right? The language used, right? Yeah. There's something that Fred Hampton says, right?
Right.
Have you noticed how there are people who have similar names in the society? And I don't think that's like the gospel artist Fred Hammond. Notice how that's Fred Hampton, Fred Hammond. You know, it's kind of similar, but it's not the same, and their purpose is not the same, but they are exalted up to misdirect appropriation. Okay, I remember this now. I don't even have to find it. Fred Hampton says in the piece, he says, politics, war is politics where there's no peace. Peace is politics where there's no war. But it's both politics. And how you use it and how you determine if the people truly want to be free is the people. The people determine if you're going to use politics. War is politics devoid of peace. Peace is war. I mean, peace is politics devoid of war. Both are both political and politics, but it's the people that determine which one they're going to use to be free, right? It's the people that determine which one they're going to use to be free, right? So that's a paraphrase, right? When you see the movie, you're going to get the full of what's going on. So look, what would you rate Judas and the Black Messiah?
Definitely a 10 plus. Like, if I can go higher than the 10, I definitely would. For all of the same reasons that you gave it. The film is touching. It's well done. It's a work of art. And again, like, you can tell that it was the labor of love by the actors, by the director, the producers, everyone, like you said, like the camera people, just everyone behind the scene. I mean, because everything is just well executed. And then there are so many scenes, just numerous scenes, like just too many to name, where like the actors are like just on top of their game, with the dialogue, like going back and forth. And like what you just quoted, there are so many beautiful lines, just well written, just like words that really like hit you, like stimulating, thought provoking.
Yes, they are.
Throughout the entire film. And so, you become invested in the lives of these people.
Yes.
And they are actual people, right?
Right.
So that's why, like, for me, like, watching the film, I was just, like, so broken up. And this wasn't at the end of the film. This is, like, the middle of the film. And then you remember you had to say, well, it's okay.
I know, it's just a movie. You have to remember that we're in a different time, right? We're in a different time. All you can do is disseminate information because the people who were uncomfortable with it, they have already fought the battle, and many of them have lost their lives. And the people who are remaining, who were from that time period, chose to be conformists and fit in. And no matter what happens to their loved ones now, they still remain conformists. Let us pray. I mean, just keep praying, and then everything will be fine. No, it's not going to be.
In this
fine.
film, it just it shows you that it's just so powerful. Like, for it to touch me, and we review tons of films, right? A lot of films, and it was beyond good. Like, this is a great film. Like I said, it's up there for me with X, with Malcolm X, with Spike Lee's film, right? And
Panther.
Panther was good too. But for
it's
me,
not on this level.
But for me, this is up there. This is a work of art.
Yeah,
like Panther was a good film, right? But this is a work of art. Malcolm X was a work of art. Like, anytime a film can pull at your heartstrings, and I mean, it did it. So everything that the actors and the directors, the producer, everything they came to do, they did it. And it's disappointing that the Golden Globe didn't nominate any of these actors. So for me, that was some personal stuff. So for me, if you couldn't see how beautiful the art is in this film, then for me, I'm thinking, well, is it personal, right? So it's got to be personal. Because
personal bigotry.
Personal bigotry.
Right. So
because it's a work of art. Her voice is beautiful, and it's a beautiful song. But I found it quite interesting. Some of the other films that they selected, and some of the other compared to like this one. This film, I already know years from now, it's going to be on the Turner Classic Movie Channel. And they only select classics. And this film is a classic already. I mean, just bravo, great job, beautifully done.
Beautifully done. And before I give my rating, I have to say, I didn't really talk about the script writing. We talked about the dialogue as far as the gems that are put in it, but the script writing is not only superb, but it's superior.
Right.
The script writing, because an actor can only bring to life what's on the page. Right? And they work with the director to streamline and with the director, their opposites, and the cinematographer and how shots are going to be set up. That's the gumbo to make their performance come out. But what's on the page, if what's on the page is doo-doo, then all you're going to see in the end is an actor doing the best he can with some doo-doo. But this script writing on this is superb. I should have started out with that, but it is superior. It is well done. And again, for the Golden Globes, not that you should care. And that's another thing. Not that we as American black people should care what the Golden Globes think, the foreign press
It's just obvious what they did.
But if you get to the end of the film, I'm just using emotion now. This is your emotional, if you call it heart. If you get to the end of the film and her song hits you,
Right.
That means that the film was good.
Bingo.
For the song to hit you, for you to nominate the song, but to not
Bingo.
nominate the script writer, the director, at least one actor, Lakeith Stanfield, if you were going to nominate somebody, because
Kaluuya.
his out of everybody, his emoting on screen makes him stand out. He should at least got a nomination for being Judas. Right.
But the good thing about it is, well, we talked about this before last week when we reviewed American Skin, right?
And also, they gave Andrea Day. Mm-hmm. They gave her a nomination for Best Actress, right? Okay. So they said, well, look, we gave you a song and we gave you one actor.
They said they had to give us something.
But it's going to be,
and we reviewed,
the Golden Globes, the government.
The government,
the U.S., the United States versus
Billie Holiday, American
and American Skin.
But when I talked about American Skin last week, we talked about politics, right? And so, as far as the politics goes, although there wasn't a Golden Globe nomination for any of the actors, what's most important is that the people resonate with the work, right? So as long as
resignate.
Oh, I'm getting
resignation.
Resonate. Right. As long as the people can resonate.
The work resonates with the people.
Right. As long as, that's what's most important, right? If it pulls at the people's heartstrings the way it did for me, and if people come out and support the film like they did American Skin, it's all good. So, your award is how the people feel. Yeah, it's how the people feel about the film.
Just like what Fred
and all of the
Hampton
accolades.
That's what Fred Hampton said. The people decide.
Right. The people decide, not the foreign press or, please. No. So it's the people. So this is a great film. It's a great work of art. The acting is superb. The directing is superb. Great producers. The script is just well written. So hey,
So that is a 10.
Right.
That is a 10, right? Which brings us to the last topic for tonight, which has to do with 10 films that have to do with how music how American black music has affected the masses to the point of where it is. So let me bring this up and then we'll go through the list here. But this is the list of films, right? So I want you to see the covers so that you can research. So we did a lot of research. So these films right here lock in and tie in to various period. It goes from the 1920s all the way up to 1973 with Wax Stack. So it starts out with the 1920s with Bojangles and Betsy Smith. Moves all the way through into the 1970s with Wax Stacks. If you have never seen the Wax Stacks documentary, I'm going to go in reverse. If you have never seen the Wax Stacks documentary, the Wax Stacks documentary details everything. This is 1973. I'm only 2 years old, right? Sorry I missed it, but I wouldn't miss the age that I am right now being in Generation X. Look, it chronicles everything. Richard Pryor is in it. Let me pull up some of the people who are in it. Let me bring this list up. You've seen the cover, so let me bring the list up so that we can read the list to you better. Some of the people who are in Wax Stacks, if you've never seen this documentary. Wax Stacks, 1973, live concert film starring the staple singers, Richard Pryor, Carl Thomas, Rufus Thomas, Luther Ingram, Kim Weston, Johnny Taylor, the Bar-Kays, Isaac Hayes, Albert King, and that's not even scratching the surface of the stars that you see, right? But it's the conversation that they have with the people, Remember, the people are always the most important. The people are always the most important.
Right.
Again, the people are
Right.
always the
Always.
most important.
Right.
It's the conversation they have with the people. They talk about what's happening out in the streets with the
Right.
police. They talk about the self-love, self-pride. They talk about relationships between black men and black women.
Okay.
Back in 1973, the woman comes up and says, what I don't understand is how a black man will go get any white woman. And why would they want to get any white woman when there's a black woman that can do anything and do it better? Then so the whole conversation, all the conversations that we still talk about today are in this film. And when you look at the other films, starting from back in the 1920s, it's the same conversation all the way to today, which means that as me and my sister talk about on hashtag Observations TFR, in the early shows, we don't speak on it too much anymore because why beat a dead horse? We have to get off the hamster wheel.
Right.
The hamster wheel is the problem. And how do we get off the hamster wheel? We have to do something different than what we did last time because obviously they know they can get you with what they did last time. Right? Okay. So let's go forward now because I wanted to start with Wax Stacks to get you to Bojangles 2001. Gregory Hines, Kimberly Elise. 2 years later, 2003, Gregory Hines would be dead. Who would know that 2 years later, Gregory Hines would be dead? This is the story. It's a bio. It's like a documentary, but instead they show you documentary footage, but they have Kimberly Elise, who is his first wife, portraying his first wife, and Gregory Hines as Mr. Bojangles, Bill Robinson, Bill Bojangles Robinson, and the issues that they had then are the issues that are discussed then are the same issues that we discuss now. But this ties in. This is very important to get an understanding, a middle standing, an overstanding of what's going on. That's why we bring this up on Black History Month. We may not be the only show that is dealing with Black history, but we are the only one that is connecting the dots. We are connecting the dots on this show. Now, the next one is an offering from Queen Latifah as Betsy Smith. Now, for those who do not know who Betsy Smith is, shame on you. If you don't know who Betsy Smith is, if you just now, if you thought that Ma Rainey, Black Bottom, was the only woman out there, you just discovered that.
Who's that most deaf?
Who?
Fat Bottom.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Miss Fat Bottom. That's right. That's right. Well, Miss Fat Booty. That's what it was. Miss Fat Booty. But anyway, look, if you thought that Ma Rainey was the only one back in that time that were making race records, you would be wrong. But Betsy Smith was the first $1 million seller of what was called race records to separate black artists away from Caucasian artists. But obviously the Caucasians were buying it, right? And what you find, well, I'll get to that. I'm not going to overstep. We're going to get to that point in some other movies as we put it together. Now, Sammy Day, the next thing that you should watch, which is up to watch on Black Reels on YouTube. Black Reels is a station that deals with black entertainment, right? Is the 60th anniversary celebration that was produced and presented live in 1990, celebrating Sammy Davis Jr.
Oh yeah, that was
That's right.
Really nice.
celebrating Sammy Davis Jr. A couple of things. A couple of people who came up there, they just came up there because they were the hot thing. They really didn't know him, like Whitney.
Yeah.
You watching it, and she says, this song really fits you, but you didn't know Sammy. But that's water under the bridge, right? She didn't have as longevity as Sammy. Sammy started when he was 3-4 years old, and he had a great diction, but anyway, we'll keep going.
You think she knew her through her mother? No,
she didn't. Because, her mother was with Elvis. Different story. I'm sure they met in passing because, there's pictures with Elvis and all that. But anyway, besides the point. Everyone who came out for his 60th anniversary, so from the early talkies all the way up through 1990, he was 60 years in the game. And the clips that they show of him and the various people who come out and talk his story give you a context on history, because he was around. He was just being born as Bojangles was popular. He would have known Betsy Smith, known of Betsy Smith, if not have met her as a child. She would have been an adult. He would have been a child, and he would have met her. Now, moving right along. The next one, which is coming out, is the United States versus Billie Holiday. Now, when we get into the 1950s, you find that the rock and roll artists, which was actually rhythm and blues, we're going to get there, are going through the same things that Betsy Smith went through it too, but this is really highlighted in the United States versus Billie Holiday because of a certain song that she would sing because she had enough, right? Starring Andra Day, directed by Lee Daniels, right?
Lee Daniels stated something that I hadn't thought about it, but he's right.
What's that?
That Billie Holiday was one of our early activists.
One of the civil rights leader in music, right?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. She put it on the line. Right. Now, the next piece comes out in 1984. All right, let me bring this up here. The next piece comes out in 1984, but it deals in Black Hollywood from the 1920s, when there was no talkies, all the way up to that period in 1984, and it is called Black Hollywood, right? 1984, Black Hollywood, right? And in Black Hollywood, it features Paul. It features Paul Mooney, right?
You laugh just thinking about him.
Yeah.
He's hilarious.
It features Paul Mooney, Jim Brown, Vanetta McGee, DeVale Martin, and more. And they talk about in 84, because of the music video coming out, they said that Black people could begin to be outside of Hollywood and start their own business, being independent with their own film companies due to this new thing called video. Right? So they were calling for the independence then, right? They were calling in 1984. So let's move over here. Now, this next one is real dear to my heart because I watched it the other day through a Black film festival that they allow, writers and showrunners like ourselves to watch many of the videos, many of the films ahead of time. So this one is dear to my heart. That Rhythm, That Blues, 1988. It features Charles Brown and Ruth Brown, right? Now, everybody remembers Charles Brown.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, baby.
Yeah. Classic.
You sure did treat me nice.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, baby.
Yeah.
You sure did treat me nice. You got me so high, you got me lit up like a Christmas tree. I'm getting ready to change words right here. Old Saint Nick came down the chimney. He took a little bit 3:30. He took a look at me and said, "Nigga, please don't kill me. Merry Christmas, baby. You sure did treat me nice." But anyway, look.
You know what? That took me back because one of the things that I loved growing up about Christmas time is every year on 93 FM, they played all of the Black Christmas songs.
Yes, they sure did.
All of them.
Yeah, they sure did.
All of them. And they played that song like...
Yeah, and Charles Brown.
Christmas.
But what's interesting about this, about this movie, that rhythm, that blues, 1988. First of all, you get to see Charles Brown. This is a person that I only saw his image, his photo, and I heard him sing. I didn't know that Charles Brown lived that long. He lived to 1999.
Wow.
Ruth Brown, who was big in the 1940s. She had her big hit in the 1940s. Then she had her first baby, and it slowed her career down. Well, you have to watch the documentary to get it. But in between featuring them, they discuss how the music industry was, and they speak to different people who were in the industry, like people who are white record labels who went and searched out the people, went back into the sticks of the South where they were hearing the people play, and most of the people didn't care. Also on the film is Ike Turner, right? I mean, it's really interesting how they go back and they talk to these people and they show you what the Chitlin circuit was like, and what happens to Ruth Brown and Charles Brown, which slowed their career down to basically a halt, and then how later they get their second, I'll just call it 15 minutes of fame through people who like their music, primarily Caucasians, right? Though black people supported their music, but when they come back out, then they able to go back to their main fan base and rock out with black people. The next after that is Malcolm X.
Okay.
Malcolm X puts you right in that era.
Right.
X puts you right in that era of where Ruth Brown is, right? Where Sammy Davis Jr. is coming through, right? It puts you right in that era. And Malcolm X comes in through the 1950s, through rock and roll into the 1960s. And as everyone knows, his life story ends in the 1960s, right? But his inspiration
it's alive
lived
today.
on, right?
Right.
Now, the next piece is one about Sam Phillips, and it's misnamed, so that's why I put the quotations in there. It's really misnamed, right? It says Sam Phillips, the man who invented rock and roll. It's a 2000 documentary. It's really when Biography Channel first came out.
Oh.
And did you know that Biography Channel was British at first?
Wow.
It was pumped in from British because the person, the announcer talking, was British. And so I'm like, okay, so Biography Channel, most of the biographies were being looked at through the British scope, scope, right? So the film is you have to put in white folks, because white folks have the catalog and they had the ability to record. Sam Phillips, he grew up on black gospel music, and he grew up listening to, because he came from Alabama, but he grew up listening to what was happening in anyway, you'll watch the documentary, but he grew up listening to what the blacks were doing, singing, right? The R&B, because that's all it was. Rock and roll was actually R&B.
Right.
Louis Jordan.
Right.
R&B, but when
Right.
you listen to early Louis Jordan with the
Mhm.
saxophone is replaced by the guitar,
Okay.
but it's still the same rhythms in the
Mhm.
back.
Mhm.
And Louis Jordan is actually the father
Right.
of rock and roll. He's actually the father of rock and roll,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
This guy he opened up a studio where for $3
Mhm.
you could cut one side of acetate,
Okay.
and for $4 you could cut a second side.
Mhm.
And so all these different people were coming through,
Mhm.
and so then that gradually opened him up to opening up a record label, which
Mhm.
was Sun Records. And you
Oh,
know who
okay.
Sun Records had?
Okay.
Sun Records later had
Mhm.
Elvis Presley
Okay.
and the man in black, Johnny Cash, right? So he had these people, but before he had those white artists, he
Mhm.
had all of the black artists, like
Okay.
what's the let me see, well, let me scan real quick. I don't want to show up the show, but I'm trying to scan for it. Okay. Rufus Thomas,
Mhm.
he was on the label. He
Mhm.
got his first start on Sun Records. But once he discovered Elvis,
Mhm.
a lot of his people who were working with Sam Phillips were looking for the black artist that could cross over to the white audience.
Okay.
Sam Phillips was looking for the black artist that
Mhm.
could sing like the black artist that could cross over.
Okay.
So Sam Phillips, in the end,
Mhm.
really was not as true to the people who had got him to the certain point, and he just wiped that away and
Mhm.
dealt with all black artists. Jerry Lee Lewis comes through, Great Balls of Fire, right?
Okay.
Don't Step on My Blue Suede Shoes. Sam Perkins comes through,
Okay.
and all of the different white artists
Mhm.
came through after Elvis, right?
Right.
So they say he is the one who invented rock and roll. So
Mhm.
he can have the term, but everybody knows that it's rhythm and blues, actually. And it's black rhythm and blues. So, I mean, to have context, you have to go. Now,
Right.
as Goldie Hawn said, when they honored
Mhm.
this next man that we're going to show,
Okay.
as like Goldie Hawn said,
Mhm.
this man, there was a lot of rock and roll out, but this man wrote the narrative of rock and roll with his songs.
Yeah.
And that
He
man
did.
was Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
One of my favorite, like, before I knew Bill Haley and the Comets,
Mhm.
before I knew Jerry Lee Lewis,
Mhm.
before I even had heard an Elvis Presley record,
Okay.
my parents had Chuck Berry record
Mhm.
down in the basement from Live in London,
Mhm.
and I would grab it and play it, and it had a song on there called My Ding-a-ling,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And it was when he was in London, and he said, once when I was a little boy, my grandma gave me a brand new toy. And every time the bell would ring, I would play with my ding-a-ling. Oh my. And he had the audience, had the girl saying my, and had the fella saying ding-a-ling, and the English crowd was with it. And so that's when I got. But my all-time favorite song is Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry. But his whole catalog is just jumping. Now, his connection to right above him, Billie Holiday. He was the black pace setter for all rock and roll.
Right.
He pace set for all rock and roll. If
Right.
you wanted to even think that you were up there, you had to get to the level of his writing prowess to tell the story, tell a story in rock and roll. So Chuck Berry was the pace setter, right?
Was he like the architect?
He was the one who wrote the story of rock and roll.
Okay.
See, there was Sam Phillips
Okay.
through his studio
Okay.
may have got to coin the phrase to make it more commercial to say rock and roll.
Right.
But Chuck Berry was the man who moved through the white audience as he was telling his narrative, his ability, his penmanship, his pen game. Not penmanship is how you.
I would like to see the Chuck Berry story.
Yeah, that's hell. Well, actually, the Chuck Berry story. You're right, but he's in Cadillac Records.
Is that Mos Def?
That's Mos Def playing him. He's in Cadillac Records, right? Because he was on Chess Records, right? Right. But his ability to his narrative, like when he talks about Johnny Be Good, and he's talking about he could never read and write so well, but he could play a guitar just like a ringing a bell. Go, go, dun, 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 go, Johnny, go. And he has these hooks, and then the storylines that he tell, his writing goes up against anyone. Right. And supersedes a lot of people who were just saying shake, rattle and roll, everybody shake. And he wrote nice
ballads. The one ballad that you like.
Yeah. He writes nice ballads. Yeah. And so my point, he and Billie Holiday had the same track with the government, because the government thought that just like jazz, so many years before it, they thought that rock and roll was the devil's music, just like they thought that hip hop was the devil's music. And how many black people have went to prison once hip hop became big? Right. How many of the artists have gone to jail? So to try to stymie it, and then they bring out these. Back when Billie Holiday was going, they didn't. Well, yes, they did, because they had Pat Boone. Pat Boone came out and started singing the standards, started singing Little Richard stuff, and the other not Tammy Wynette, but some of the other artists, white artists, would come and cover the black people's songs. Same thing in the 1950s. After they were able to put Chuck Berry in jail, they sent Elvis, who was authentic rock and roll for what he was doing. They sent him to the military. The Big Bopper, Bill Haley, dead in a plane crash. Some of the other artists dead. Then they brought in the teen idols to replace, just like what they do today in hip hop. They bring out these guys to replace. So it's the same thing. So it's always considered the devil's music, because it's coming from an American black place. So this particular documentary is called Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll. HAIL, like hail, hail, the chief is here. So Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll, and it's celebrating in 1987. It's celebrating when Chuck Berry was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it has a lot of behind the scenes footage.
Yeah, it does. Beautiful scene with him and Etta James.
That's right, Etta James, and he does this behind the scenes. You can see a lot of it on YouTube too, where he does a medley of 1940s music with his guitar, and I mean, he plays these songs, and then he talks about what got him into playing rock and roll, and it came from Boogie Woogie. So I mean, it's just, and Boogie Woogie is nothing but another black art form. Right. And so, and when you hear in his music, you hear the way he plays his guitar. That's actually he's able to play Boogie Woogie while playing the chords of rock and roll, right? Which brings us back to then wax stacks. Okay. So these are the 10 definitive that will tie you into what's happening as far as these 10 films, right? Bojangles, Betsy, the 60th celebration of Sammy Davis Jr., the United States versus Billie Holiday, Black Hollywood 1984, That Rhythm, That Blues, X, Sam Phillips, the inventor of rock and roll, Chuck Berry, Hail Hail, the actual writer of rock and roll, and wax stacks. Yes. This brings you into the 70s, and next week we'll be going and coming into the 80s. right?
When you say
And take
wax
you through
stacks,
the 80s. Wax, yeah, Watt stacks.
Wax stacks.
Watt stacks.
Oh, no,
Stacks Records.
Is that when you say that, that makes me think of Isaac Hayes. Wasn't he on that label?
Yeah, he was on Stacks and Watts, but they did this in Watts. It was a commemorative of the Watts riots. It was really to pacify the people.
Okay.
They took the movement and then they pacified it. And sometimes I wonder what Jesse Jackson feels hearing what's going on in this documentary and how none of it came to pass. And the same things that they talk in the Wax Stacks documentary are the same things that they talk that we're still speaking on today, and we need to get off the hamster wheel and get to solution-based solutions.
Yes.
Action that is solution-based. All right, people. So this is our first Black History Month.
It's a great show. It's a hot show, as you can see.
That's right. So we got. So that was the first 10. I had to break it up.
All right.
And so next week is going to be the next 10 films plus that have to do with coming in from out of the 70s, coming into the 80s, coming into today, right? How our music and the movies and the documentaries that connect the dots. But you start with this will give you a great knowledge of what's happening with Black music and how it is the culture, the American culture is Black music, American Black music. So this has been another great, robust episode of hashtag TFR Podcast Live. They blocked us and everything, but the people stuck with us on YouTube and they stuck with us on FB, and we appreciate that you stayed with us all the way through. We know that this is Super Bowl Sunday, and you know, you could have been any place else, but you came and you took your time to watch this show because, you know, Black history is not just 1 month, it's 365 days of the year. And just because there's a football game that usually plays in January, doesn't mean that Black History Month doesn't exist.
Well, that's the other day, our Vice President, Kamala Harris, she said Black History, she said all those Black History Months, she said Black History is every day.
Oh boy, she knows how to kick it, don't she? As she was talking to the Black, as she was talking
Chamber
to the Black Chamber of Commerce all around the United States. She was talking to them, it was synced up through a Zoom, I guess. And she was talking to them, but she was, whenever they would ask her questions, she was talking about, I was over there and we had the two representatives from Atlanta. I'm saying, you're just talking flim-flam. You're not getting to the solutions. I would have been like, what's the budget? Like, what's the percentages? What's the breakdown?
He did. The gentleman from Atlanta.
Yeah, after she had to pop in after the I don't even know, the Secretary of
Yellen, I believe.
Yeah, Yellen. After Secretary Yellen took the question serious, he said, "Oh yeah, she is a." But anyway.
But you know what? Definitely proof that you need to see Judas and the Black Messiah is how they kept clipping us when we reviewed that film. So definitely you have to go see it and support it. And wow, still in depth, they are still threatened by Fred Hampton Jr.
That's right, Fred Hampton. No, Fred Hampton Sr.
Senior.
This is Junior.
Oh, Junior is his son who helped with the film.
That's right.
Him and his mom.
That's right. And he's still alive.
Definitely go see it. It's worth seeing.
That's right. So, people, this has been another robust episode of hashtag TFR Podcast Live. That's the film review, movies, music, culture, politics, society podcast. We are your husband and wife team. I'm Crazy D.
Tracy.
And we review movies, music, culture, politics, society on a podcast called hashtag TFR Podcast Live that comes on 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern on Sundays on the Film Review Life channel. Make sure that you tune in Monday, tomorrow, right? As hashtag Observations TFR comes on with another great episode. It's Miscellaneous Monday. So you know it's going to be very entertaining and informative at the same time. Woo! That comes on at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. That's myself and my sister Tanya M. Congress.
Yeah.
And don't forget, if you haven't listened yet,
Yeah.
on Google Podcasts,
Right.
TuneIn,
Right.
on Stitcher,
Right.
and we're on iHeartRadio, y'all. You can go there, just go to Google search,
Right.
type in hashtag, you found a spot, and the podcast will come up. You click there and you can listen to the latest What's the Point by my sister Tanya M. Congress, where she breaks down what's happening today and what's happening in the church today with the Holy Bible, part of the Holy Bible Society. So people, as we endeavor to bring you quality shows, we will see you next week with next Sunday, with another great episode of hashtag TFR Podcast Live.
The Film Review, Movies, Music, Culture, Politics, Society Podcast, interviews, movie reviews, and more. Live Sundays at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern on the Spot Podcast and the Film Review Life channel. Subscribe.
Hi, this is Bernadette Stannis, Thelma from Good Times, and you're watching The Film Review.